I heard my father-in-law scream, "You have 10 minutes to disappear." But instead of me walking out alone, the entire floor stood up behind me. I'm Daniel Pierce, 62 years old. For 8 years, I lived as a manager in a giant logistics company, but in practice, I was treated like property. Like I owed my life to the family I married into. You think the villain in this story is obvious? I thought so too. Until the day I discovered what really made those people bow their heads, and why 52 of them decided to throw it all away in the exact same minute. Before I tell you this secret, let me know in the comments, where are you listening from? I pushed open the glass doors of the building, and the air conditioning hit my face like I was walking into a freezer that was too expensive to be human. The lobby had that smell of clean carpet and reheated coffee, the kind of place where everyone walks fast and smiles little. In the elevator, I adjusted my tie in the metal reflection and saw a 62-year-old man practicing his own expression, like he was putting on a mask before going up. Have you ever done that? Rehearsing, "I'm fine," before anyone even asks. On the outside, my life looked like a perfect American commercial. Nice house in the suburbs, health insurance, paid-off car, vacations when possible, and a beautiful wife everyone envied. I married Allison, and suddenly became part of a family that had real power, the kind of name people whisper when they mention it. And that's where the trick started. Because you might think I won the lottery, but I just traded one type of debt for another. I wasn't loved for who I was. I was useful. At company events, I laughed the right way. At the 4th of July BBQ, I raised my glass with the right smile. At the holiday dinner, I shook hands and accepted old jokes like they were an honor. I learned to become Gordon Whitaker's son-in-law before being Daniel. And every time someone said that, I felt my shoulders go up a millimeter, like my body was already expecting a correction. Inside, it was like living in a beautiful house where you don't have the key to a single door. I worked 8 years in that empire of trucks, warehouses, and million-dollar contracts. Everyone called me manager, but I knew what I really was. A prop that had to look good in the family photo. If I got it right, it was the bare minimum. If I messed up, it became the topic at Sunday lunch, in the car, at the table. Like my performance was a school report card, the whole family had the right to grade. And I stayed. Because the pay was high, because the stability felt responsible, because I convinced myself that enduring it was a synonym for being strong. But there is one thing no one tells you about this kind of life. The prison doesn't start with bars. It starts with small, harmless requests, small tests, small boundaries pushed, until you realize you don't even decide when your day ends. And I realized this in the simplest and most humiliating way possible. With a phone ring on a regular night, when my hand was already on my front doorknob. Gordon's name appeared on the screen, and my jaw locked before I even answered. I still remember the first Sunday I understood the kind of job I really had. It was late afternoon. I was in the backyard trying to fake normality meat on the grill, smoke rising, Allison inside laughing at something on TV. My phone buzzed on the plastic table, and when I saw Gordon Whitaker, my hand closed so tight around the device, my knuckles turned white. I answered before the third ring, because I knew that for him, a missed call was a personal insult. And he didn't ask how I was. He spoke like someone yanking a leash. "I need you to revise a report now. I sent it to your email." I tried to answer in a calm tone, one that wouldn't spark a fire. "I can look at that tomorrow morning." On the other end, a half-second silence, the kind that weighs a ton. Then he let out a short laugh, like I'd told a joke. "Tomorrow morning, I'll already be talking about it in the meeting. Do you want to embarrass me?" That's when I understood the trick. Any boundary I set became a character flaw. I looked at the grill, heard the grease popping, and thought I had two ways to ruin that afternoon. Saying no, or saying yes. I chose yes, and went inside. With that, I'll be right back smile you give when you do and want to explain to your own wife that you do and own your life. At the company, it only got worse because everyone pretended it was normal. Gordon made me a manager, gave me a nice office, an access badge, and a title that made others respect me. For 5 minutes. Because that respect evaporated the moment he walked in. In meetings, he interrupted me like I was an intern. I'd start a sentence, and he'd raise his hand without even looking. Let me explain. One day, I presented a solution that would save a fortune in roots and fuel. I barely finished the last slide, and he said loudly for the whole room to hear, "This isn't brilliant. This is the bare minimum." I felt my tongue hit the roof of my mouth and stayed quiet, because challenging him in front of others was asking to be crushed. At night, the control turned into something more insidious. I'd be on the couch, the TV glare lighting the dark room, and my phone would vibrate with short, cold messages without context. "Call me. Now. Did you see the email?" Sometimes I replied in 2 minutes and still got a "took you long enough." And the sickest part is that I started adjusting my life to avoid his irritation. I didn't choose what to watch anymore. I didn't truly relax. I just stayed available. Like my time off was a favor he granted and could revoke whenever he wanted. If you've ever had a boss like this, subscribe to the channel, because the payback I gave him was deserved, but before the payback, there was a lot I swallowed in silence. What kept me there wasn't just the title. It was the feeling that if I left, I'd be betraying the family. And he knew it. Gordon didn't treat me like a professional he hired. He treated me like someone he took in, and taking in his mouth, was a bill I had to pay every day with obedience. There was a night I stood in the hallway, holding a folder to my chest, waiting for him to finish a call so I could enter his office. Through the cracked door, I heard him laugh with someone from the board and say, "Daniel? He's loyal. He does what I say." I wasn't being introduced as a right-hand man. I was being described as property. And in that instant, looking at the expensive carpet and walls smelling of cleaning product, I realized something that hit me hard. The more I obeyed, the easier it was to break me. And the cruelest part is that the next day, I still went to work as if nothing happened, only with a question hammering in my head. How much is a salary worth when it buys your peace? I had everything a sensible man should want at 62. High salary, health plan that covered almost everything, company car, year-end bonus, and that talk of, "You're set for life." I repeated this to myself like a prayer, but it was strange, because when the deposit hit, I didn't celebrate. I just looked at the number and thought about how much silence I had paid for it. The house looked beautiful, the fridge full, the bills paid, and I felt emptier, as if my routine had been reduced to keeping the machine running. In the office, Gordon's micromanagement was so constant it became the weather. I didn't make a decision without feeling his weight in the back of my mind. He wanted to be copied on everything, informed before anyone else, wanted to review emails that weren't even his. One day I approved a simple adjustment to a contract, small stuff, no risk, and he called me into his office like I'd set the building on fire. He let me explain for 20 seconds, then raised a finger, cutting me off. "You don't decide anything alone, Daniel." "Understood." I stood there with my pen frozen between my fingers, looking at his framed diploma, thinking, I became a manager for what then? To be a puppet in a tie? And the worst wasn't just the control, it was the erasure. I brought in clients that changed the game. I closed a deal that increased our margin by hundreds of thousands a month. I know because I saw the spreadsheet. I saw the chart go up. I saw the team breathe a sigh of relief. In the presentation to the board, I walked in with my laptop and notes, ready to speak. Gordon arrived 2 minutes later, put a hand on my shoulder like I was a boy, and said loudly, "I've got this." He clicked through the slides like they were his, told my strategy like it had popped into his head, and threw in a phrase at the end. "My team executed well." My team. I swallowed hard and kept my smile frozen, because I knew if I corrected him, I'd become ungrateful. At the holiday party, this became even clearer. Low music, yellow light, people with glasses in hand talking about targets and trips. The CFO raised a toast and started listing those responsible for the quarter's best results. He named directors, named Gordon 3 times, even named a new manager who had barely arrived. My name didn't come up once. I stood near the dessert table, twisting a napkin, watching the scene like I was watching someone else's life. Allison found me and whispered, "Are you okay?" I answered, "Yeah," in the most automatic way possible. And I hated that she believed it. If you've lived this working hard, delivering results, and still being treated as invisible, subscribe to the channel, because I know exactly the taste of that injustice. The money had become an elegant leash. I had security, but I didn't have dignity. And that week, I started to realize something dangerous. I wasn't just tired anymore. I was running out of will. I'd get to the parking lot and stay 1 extra second in the car, hands on the wheel, just to delay the next email, the next call, the next demand. It was at this point that the blow came opening a crack I couldn't pretend didn't exist anymore. The phone rang on a day I will never forget, and Gordon's voice on the other end had nothing of family in it. It only had orders, and it came at the worst possible moment. I was in the hospital parking lot, hands resting on the wheel, watching the red emergency sign flicker in the heat of the asphalt. The air outside smelled of disinfectant mixed with gasoline, and inside the car, the bitter taste of vending machine coffee lingered. My father had just died. It wasn't a movie scene. It was that heavy silence after the last beep, a nurse pulling the sheet up too carefully, and me standing there, not knowing where to look. I didn't want to talk to anyone. I just wanted to drive aimlessly for a few minutes, as if movement could snap things back into place. My phone vibrated on the console. When I saw Gordon Whitaker's name, I froze for a second, as if the device had turned into a trap. I answered because, back then, I always answered. His voice came through clean, firm, without the slightest pause for respect. "Daniel, I need the Midwest Route Performance Report today. The board wants to see it tomorrow morning." I spoke quietly, almost soundlessly. "Gordon, my father just passed away." There was a short silence, not a silence of empathy. It was calculation. Then he said, "I'm sorry, but you're a manager. Get it to me in 2 hours." I gripped the wheel until the rubber marked my palm, and for the first time in 8 years, I thought a sentence that scared me. I hate this man. I went back to the wake with my laptop in my backpack, and I know how that sounds. I know. But when you live under someone like that, you start making decisions that don't match who you were before. While family hugged and cried, I found empty corners to answer emails. I avoided eye contact because I was ashamed. Allison saw my screen lit up and whispered, "Daniel, please." And I just shook my head like I was choosing this. Inside, I already understood what I didn't have the courage to say out loud yet. It wasn't work. It was control. And he had just crossed a line that couldn't be fixed with a bonus. When the pandemic hit and the company sent everyone home, it was like someone turned off a constant alarm. I worked from the kitchen table, listening to the sounds of my own neighborhood, lawnmower in the distance, a dog barking, a garbage truck early in the morning. No footsteps behind me, no door opening without knocking, no looking over my shoulder, waiting for a mistake. Gordon tried to maintain the same dominance via video call, but it wasn't the same. I could close the laptop for a minute and just stare out the window, breathing like a normal man. If you felt relief like that, hit like, because the return to normal was the beginning of my end there. The problem is, normal came back. And when I stepped foot in the Whitaker Freight Group building in Chicago again, I felt it instantly. Hell hadn't ended. It had just taken a break. Gordon was worse, harder, more impatient, as if the pandemic had offended his ego. In the first week, he exposed me in a meeting over a formatting detail in a report, as if I'd sabotaged the company. I kept my mouth shut, nodded, and noted every word. And that night, at home, I opened an old notebook, wrote two simple words at the top of the page, exit plan, and for the first time, I didn't feel fear of what was coming. I felt clarity, but I still had no idea what would happen when I finally put that plan on the table. And Gordon gave me the answer he always kept for the disobedient. I started preparing my exit, like someone preparing a silent escape. Nothing dramatic, no speeches. I just stopped counting on hope and started counting on numbers. I arrived early, did my work, and at night I sat at the kitchen table with a notebook, opening spreadsheets on my laptop and calculating how long I could last without that salary. I cut expenses I didn't even know existed. I organized files, updated contacts, wrote down names of clients who trusted me more than the company logo. And mainly, I stopped asking for approval. Every day I repeated to myself, when I leave, he will try to diminish me. So I need to be ready not to react like a wounded man. The day I resigned, there was no sad music. There was the sound of a printer, the smell of fresh paper, and a gray sky typical of Chicago. I wore the same shirt I wore for important meetings, not for him, but for me. I wanted to remember I was still capable of presenting myself as a professional, even after years of being treated like a family accessory. In the elevator, I felt my throat tighten and swallowed hard, because this was it. I was going to put a period on a story I had let drag on too long. When I walked into Gordon Whitaker's office, he didn't even look up from his monitor. His desk looked like an altar-dark wood, 2 huge screens, a heavy pen holder, everything perfectly aligned. I stood there, letter in hand, waiting for him to notice me. He glanced up quickly and let out a squeak like I was a delivery guy. I placed the paper on the desk, very slowly, and said, "I'm resigning." For a second, he didn't react, just stared at the sheet like it was a printed insult. Then he lifted his face and his look sharpened, the kind that tries to make you back down without saying a word. "Are you kidding me?" he asked. I shook my head. "No." And that's when the mask fell. He shoved his chair back hard, stood up, and started pacing the room, as if my no had messed up his world. "After everything I did for you, you're going to leave me like this?" I felt my jaw harden, but I stayed still. He approached the desk and slammed his open hand on the top, once, enough to make a picture frame shake. "Pack your things and get out of here. You have 10 minutes. He didn't speak like a boss. He spoke like an owner, like he was kicking someone out of his own house. I walked out of the office with the letter already signed by fate. And in the hallway, something happened that I didn't expect even in my wildest thoughts. I was walking fast to my desk, trying to look calm, but inside, I just wanted to finish it without making a scene. But people started looking. A colleague from finance stood up and followed me. Then another, then another. And when I got to my station, the first person whispered, "Did he do that to you too?" I looked and saw tired eyes. People I thought were fine, but who had just learned to survive. In a few minutes, the whole area turned into a murmur. Keyboards stopped. Chairs dragged. Someone closed a laptop with a dry snap. A supervisor who barely spoke to me leaned on my desk and said, "If you're going, I'm going too." And one by one, like someone had released an invisible chain, 52 people went to HR to resign. It wasn't a protest with signs. It was stronger. It was tired people choosing dignity. Gordon appeared in the hallway, face red, looking around like the building had betrayed him. And I realized, right there, that my resignation wasn't just mine anymore. I had pulled a thread, and the whole empire had started to unravel. I walked out of the building with a cardboard box in my arms, in the most cliché way possible. And yet, I had never felt anything so real. The cold Chicago wind hit my face, and the parking lot seemed brighter than usual, as if the world had turned up the brightness just to tease me. I put the box in the trunk, closed it slowly, and stood for a second leaning against the car, looking up at the mirrored windows. I expected to feel panic. I expected that, what have I done? Thought. But what came was something else. A good silence. A silence that didn't have a demand inside it. On the way home, my phone wouldn't stop buzzing. It wasn't Gordon. It was messages from people I'd known for years and never seen talk like that. Thank you. I couldn't take it anymore. I thought it was just me. There was one call I took on speaker, and the person couldn't even speak at first. Just took a deep breath and said, "Daniel, I did it. I resigned too." I looked at the road, at the trucks passing on the expressway, and pressed my lips together so I wouldn't break down right there. Because that had weight. That was people betting on the unknown, because the known had become impossible. In the following days, I did what I always said I would do someday, only now there were no excuses. I registered a business, made a simple website, grabbed my laptop, and started building a logistics consultancy the way I believed it should be. No screaming, no humiliation, no ego worship. I called old clients carefully, promising no miracles, just offering what I always had and what Gordon was always trying to erase: clarity, strategy, execution. And to my surprise, some of them didn't even hesitate. One guy told me, "I always knew you were the brain behind that operation." I stayed silent for a second, staring at the computer screen like someone had finally said my name the right way. 12 people who left that day reached out to me later. It wasn't everyone, and I didn't expect it to be. But 12 came with that mix of relief and fear in their eyes. We met at a cafe near an old warehouse, the kind with exposed brick and the noise of an espresso machine. One of them, Marcus, put his hands on the table and said, "I'm in. Even if I make less, I just don't want to be treated like trash anymore." I looked around and saw heads nodding. It wasn't a motivational speech. It was survival. I told the truth. I can't promise the salary Whitaker pays, but I can promise respect and clean work, and that's how we started. The first week was chaotic. I worked past midnight, house dark, monitor light illuminating the room, the heater clicking on and off. I made small mistakes, adjusted routes, redid proposals, answered emails carefully so I wouldn't look desperate. There were times I locked my jaw and stared at a spreadsheet like it was going to attack me. Because freedom is also scary when you've spent years being driven. But unlike before, the fear didn't come from someone trying to crush me. It came from the weight of finally being responsible for myself. And then came the first contract. It wasn't giant. It wasn't millionaire status. But when I saw the signed value, I laughed alone in the kitchen. A low, almost ridiculous laugh. I had made less than I made in a month at Whitaker Freight Group. But I gained something I hadn't seen in years. I finished the day and managed to sleep without waiting for the phone to vibrate. I woke up early, and when I saw myself in the bathroom mirror, I didn't look away. I thought, this is it. I'm back. And even without knowing what kind of reaction Gordon was still preparing on the other side, I had already understood that there is no bonus in the world that pays for this kind of peace. 6 months after I left, I was in my new office, which was small, but it was mine, when the phone rang. It was a number I knew by heart, but hadn't seen in months. Gordon. I let it ring 3 times. On the 4th, I answered on speakerphone without saying, "Hello." The silence on the other end lasted 2 seconds, and then I heard something I never thought I'd hear, the jagged breathing of a desperate man. "Daniel?" His voice trembled. "Daniel, we need to talk." The warehouse crew walked out. "The contract with Johnson Logistics. They said they'll only renew if you're in management." I stayed silent, looking at my wife across the table, smiling. Gordon continued, his voice going up an octave, almost crying. "Look, forget what I said. Come back. I'll give you the director's seat. I'll pay you double. The family needs you." "I need you." I remembered the hospital parking lot. I remembered the report at my father's wake. I remembered him calling me property. I leaned into the microphone and answered with the calm of someone holding the knife by the handle. "I'm sorry, Gordon, but I'm not family anymore. I'm a competitor. And Johnson Logistics? They just signed with me." I hung up the phone while he started screaming my name. And that final beep, was the most beautiful sound I've ever heard in my life. I wanted to tell you that after I left, everything became perfect, that I became a beautiful case study of overcoming and never felt doubt again. It wasn't like that. There were mornings I opened my banking app and stared at the balance for too low, doing math in my head like someone trying to control their own fate. There were days I drove to a client and, at a stoplight, saw a mirrored building that looked like Whitaker Freight Group and felt my jaw harden instantly, like my body remembered before I did. But the difference is that now I had a choice. I could breathe, fix my posture, and keep going. I didn't need to bend anymore for someone who confused authority with the right to humiliate. The first lesson came fast. Safety without happiness is a prison. I learned this when I understood that a benefit can just be an elegant way to keep you quiet. Gordon gave me a high salary, but took my rest. Gave me a title, but took my voice. Gave me the family label, but treated me like a cost that needed controlling. And I let him, because I thought enduring it was maturity. But enduring for too long becomes a habit, and habit becomes identity. You start seeing yourself the way they see you. The second and third lessons I saw in the faces of my ex-colleagues. Opportunity that imprisons is not a favor, and courage inspires collective transformation. When 52 people stood up and walked out with me, I understood I wasn't the only one trying to survive. The whole building was full of people laughing out of politeness and crying in their cars. People who thought they were weak for not being able to take it a little longer. That wasn't rebellion. It was a collective boundary. And I'll never forget the scene. Empty chairs, dark screens, hurried footsteps in the hall, and Gordon standing there, looking around like the world had committed a crime against him. In that moment, I realized respect isn't a bonus, it's the baseline. The fourth lesson is the cruelest and most freeing. It is never too late to start over. I was 62. I could have convinced myself that it's over, that my destiny was to stay there until retirement, collecting humiliation in exchange for stability. But time is going to pass anyway, and I preferred it passed with me owning my day. The fifth and sixth came together, almost like a single punch. Respect is worth more than any perk, and family doesn't justify abuse. This was hard because I wasn't just breaking with the boss. I was breaking a family dynamic, breaking the idea that I had to swallow everything to keep the peace at Sunday dinner. I still love Allison, but I had to face an uncomfortable truth. Love can't be an excuse to erase myself. And then comes the seventh lesson, which I wish I'd heard when I was younger. You don't need anyone's approval to change. I spent years waiting for a congratulations from Gordon, a sign that I was finally worthy. I wore myself out trying to earn respect from someone who only respected his own shadow. And the day I stopped looking for that, I started coming back to myself. Today, I earn less than I did there. And you know what's funny? I don't miss it. I wake up and I don't have that feeling of stepping into a boxing ring. I choose my clients. I choose my team. I choose when to turn off the computer. I can look in the mirror and recognize who's there without needing to rehearse a mask. So yes, this was my true success. It wasn't the title. It wasn't the bonus. It was the freedom to live without asking permission to exist. And now that I've finished all this, I have a question for you, because I know someone listening is stuck in a similar place, pretending everything is fine. If you had the chance to leave today, would you have the courage? Today, I don't have the absurd salary I had before. I don't have the fancy building, or the leather chair, or the right last name opening doors. But I have something I hadn't bought in years: peace. I wake up early, make my coffee, and work with people who don't need to step on anyone to feel big. 12 people from that day work with me now. We earn less, yes, but no one here lives in fear of a phone ring. And Gordon Whitaker? His empire didn't fall overnight, but he lost the thing that fed his ego the most: control over people. Because when a group realizes they can leave, the spell is broken. I don't know if he learned. I just know that I did. I would do it all again. And you? Would you have forgiven him? If this story hooked you, leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone who needs to hear this right now. And comment below. Where are you listening from? And have you ever had a boss like this?